Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Gridiron Grind with Andrew and Lance. Today's episode is all about the crazy trades and cuts, and it's been a lot of insane things happening this past week. So we're going to start there. We'll dive into free agency in our next episode. But where we need to start is kind of where we left off last time with Matthew Stafford. So we were discussing that in the last episode. Then, wouldn't you know it, right after we recorded, he made his decision. He was staying with LA. So that's kind of the first domino to fall. Him staying in LA means the Raiders couldn't get Stafford, their first choice. So what happened just yesterday, I think it was? They
Mhm.
traded for Geno Smith. And there's a lot of backstory to that. Apparently, the Seahawks tried to extend him. They wanted him to stay, but Geno's like, that's not enough money, and I'm not sure if I like the direction the team's going. And they tried to trade for Max Crosby from the Raiders, a combination of Geno and DK for Max Crosby. That would have been crazy. And that was before Crosby got extended too. So I might have taken that deal, but that would have I had to look at it more, but that would have been wild. But it ended up being a third round pick for Geno Smith. So he's gonna go to the Raiders, make that team a little better, but they're still not great. But they have a lot of free agent money, and there's a draft,
That's
so they're not done.
that's interesting that they could have. I did not hear about the Max Crosby news.
I just read that this morning. Yeah, that they tried to do. I was like, oh, and I forgot who I read it about. It was from an insider though. It was from someone
I mean
legit.
that checks out. It makes sense. I mean the Seahawks have a huge need on defense in terms of just
Hmm.
bolstering up front. The
Hmm.
interior I think is in a better spot than the exterior, but
Right. Yeah, they just
yeah,
drafted that D tackle from Texas last year, I think. So yeah,
I'm surprised. That the Raiders weren't more gung ho about that. I mean Max
I
Crosby
know.
is
Yeah, I read
he's at
that the Raiders said that he is not tradable. He is not on the market, basically. When it was an article I read this morning where the Raiders brass said no, Max Crosby's not on the market. So they decided for a third round pick for Geno straight up. But that would have been wild. I mean, the Raiders would have had Geno Smith, DK Metcalf, Brock Bowers to go along with
wow
their
wow.
defense would have been hurting. They would have needed a lot to look through there. But they have the sixth pick? They could have got a stud on defense at the sixth pick. And the offense would have looked pretty decent. I don't know.
Well, I
They
mean,
still have Jacob Myers too.
I just want to look at this here to see where the Raiders are at with salary. I mean, they had
They have a
$50
lot.
million to work with. It's not like
They have
they
a
were
lot.
hurting.
Hmm.
And I guess it's technically they had 44 million to spend because of certain cap hits over the year. But
Yeah.
wow, I mean, to me that's crazy because you know you could get someone like Josh Sweat, and I think Josh could fill in admirably to replace Max Crosby and get him on the
Yeah.
open market.
Yeah. And Landry from the Titans is available. He's
That's
older, but he's
true.
still got at least 2 more years of really good play in him. You can get him for a little
Mhm.
bit cheaper. I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know. To me, first off, I want to say this. I love the move for Oakland, or excuse me, for Las Vegas. I
Vegas,
think
yeah.
that,
Hmm.
I think this is a really good move for them to take the
Makes them
trade.
better.
Um, Personally, I know we talked about this yesterday, Andrew. I
Hmm.
think they got him for cheap. I think they should have had to pay more. I mean, like for context, Kenny Pickett went for the equivalent of a high fifth or low fourth last year to the Eagles.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
got him for a third. The difference in quality between Pickett and Geno Smith is pretty substantial. Um,
Yeah. And so it's the age, though, because
yeah,
Gino you might get for another 3 years, maybe.
but I mean, we're not talking about a Kirk Cousins type of player that's played an entire career coming in with multiple injury issues. That's, like you're talking about someone that's been a starter for 3 years. That's it.
Hmm.
Like, so I just don't think that, especially for quarterbacks, because, the grind of training camp is not the same for a quarterback as it is for an offensive lineman or defensive lineman.
That's
It's
fair.
not the same. You're not running around the field. You're not getting your fingers jammed up. You're not spraining your ankles as much. They always baby quarterbacks even more because the fact that they can't risk to have them out for the year. I just think your
Hmm.
timeline as a quarterback, as far as like your durability, especially if you didn't play early in your career, is different. So like,
It can be, yes, but Father Time is unbeatable, and at one point your arm is just going to fall off. And Geno Smith was never a star. He's been solid. He's been solid. I mean, we looked at his numbers, and
mhm,
he had one really good year. I'll give him that year. I think it
mhm.
was 2022, maybe. And then the next 2 years, it was like 20-9 as far as touchdowns to picks, 21-15 this year. It's okay. That's good enough to get some wins for sure. But does it really move the needle to make you a true Super Bowl contender? Not so
I,
much.
I mean, his QB rating has been really good. It's always above 90. That is not the same thing for the
Hmm.
quarterbacks. I mean, you have to
Yeah.
factor that into the
He doesn't
evaluation
take
because,
risks. That's what that shows to me. He doesn't really take a lot of risks.
well, I mean, Dak Prescott came off of an 86 rating last year. I mean, that's not
Hmm.
great. I mean, I realize he went out early, but I'm just thinking of like similar type, like mid-tier.
I would
Um,
compare Geno to like Baker Mayfield in that range, but he's older than Baker. That age just concerns me a little bit because you're getting a player that's going to get you, I don't know, 9-ish wins for the next 3 seasons, maybe 10 at most. Flirt with the playoffs, but nothing more. And you gave up a third round pick, which is pretty valuable. You can get some stud players with a third round pick. I would have given up a
I
fourth.
just,
That's what I would have given up. But the
I just
Pete
feel like
Carroll thing is the change.
mhm.
That's swung it big time.
The part I feel like, I don't know. To me, to go from Max Crosby for DK Metcalf and Geno Smith,
Hmm.
like I feel like the trade value is down. DK
Hmm.
Metcalf is not happy with Seattle. You're going to have to find him
Hmm.
a spot. So like that has to factor into the evaluation. If you could have swung, Max Crosby for DK Metcalf and Geno Smith, I feel like that's a move you can sell to your team and to your
Hmm.
fans and say, this is a win. We're progressing in the right direction. For a third round pick, you just traded your franchise quarterback for the past few years. That doesn't feel like a win. It feels like a draw, basically. We can walk away and not feel bad, but I can't tell my
Hmm.
fans to feel excited about this trade. A second round pick, hey, we're gonna have this pick in the first round of the second day of the draft. Like I think that's something you can make fans more excited for. Whereas a third round pick, just the talent drop off is substantial after the second round. You could still get talent in the third round.
In most
You could still
drafts,
swing
in
it,
most drafts.
but I think it's way easier to sell a second round pick becoming a starter than it is a third round pick. So like even if they got a third and a sixth or a third and a fifth,
Hmm.
like if you could have done a third and a fifth for Geno and a sixth, I just think it's easier to sell that as a win because hey, we got two chances in this upcoming draft to make up for the loss of Geno. Like that's the way I look at it. I always try to look at it from a Harry Roseman standpoint. It's not just the pick, it's the
Hmm.
combination of the tools you get from your trade. And I don't know. I feel like Seattle might have backed themselves into a corner a little bit. They went about this process wrong and didn't get the max value they could have gotten for it. I understand what you're saying. I understand about the age and how maybe
Hmm.
teams argue for a fourth, but who's a better quarterback that's out there that's available? Matt Stafford's off the menu. I know we talked
Right.
about Sam Darnold, and I get the age factor, but outside of last year, and like the argument you can make as far as for looking at it, Geno's never had that bad of an end of a season like Sam Darnold did. I mean, Sam Darnold like
Mm-hmm.
basically
That's
jumped
fair.
out of an airplane with a parachute. That was that bad as far as the
Hmm.
way the season ended for him. Some of it's his fault, some of it's coaching, some of it's other
Hmm.
factors, but that end of the season was brutal.
You could also argue the opposite side that Geno Smith has never had an overall year as good as Sam Darnold did last year. Sam Darnold had 4,400
But
yards passing, 35 touchdowns,
but Geno Smith was a comeback player of the year, Andrew.
and Sam Darnold should have been.
I had to throw that out there. It's still so
Yeah,
dumb that they worked out their
yeah.
word that way, but
I think
it is
Sam
true.
Darnold and Geno Smith are like the same player, basically. They
Mm.
both started the career of the Jets, who was a garbage dumpster fire franchise that ruined their careers to start with. They bounced around a little bit, then they fell into a team that had a good infrastructure, that had good coaching, good organization, and they thrived to their best capabilities. The difference is age. Sam Darnold's 27, going on 28. Geno Smith's 34. So I kind of think that the Seahawks kind of had this in the back of their minds. Hey, Geno's winning a lot of money. We're not willing to pay that much for him. Let's see what we can get for him. They got a third round pick. Cool, great. We're going to go after Sam Darnold. We're going to give him. So, touching on that, there's been a lot of reports saying that he's not going to get as much as anticipated, which I kind of find that strange, in my opinion. How is he not getting a little bit more than like a Baker Mayfield? Because Baker Mayfield got his contract about 2 years ago and has been redone. And what happens each year? The next quarterback who's on the same level but 2 years later it gets more. That's just how it works. That's the market. So I see Sam Darnold as right in the same veins as Geno Smith, Baker Mayfield. They're all three solid quarterbacks that can win games, but not necessarily take your team to the next level. Can't really win playoff games consistently. They have their limitations. They have a ceiling, but they make your team competitive. They get some numbers. They win some games, and Sam Darnold's the next in line. So I logically, I'm thinking he's got to get 42 to 45 a year. But all these speculations and rumors and people talking are saying no, he's not getting that much. So maybe the Seahawks are saying, well, we offer Geno, let's just say, because I think Geno's contract was like a high 20s, like 28, 29, something like that. We offer Geno 36. He said no. Well, Sam Darnold won't say no to that if that's all he's going to get. So we can get a quarterback of pretty close to the same level. You can argue who's better, Geno or Sam. It's close. Who is younger, the same price we offer Geno, but we still get a third round pick in place for it. So I mean, if they're thinking chess, not checkers, then that could be a win in the end. The key though is they have to get their guy. And if they fail to get whoever they're looking at, Sam Darnold, Rodgers, whoever they're looking at, if they fail to get him, okay, then that was a fail. They have nobody to play quarterback now. And they're not going to be able to draft one because I think they're low first round. So Sanders, Ward, they're going to be gone unless they're looking at Jackson Dart. You never know. Maybe they're going to draft him. Maybe they'll do like a bridge Aaron Rodgers for a year and get Jackson Dart in there. Who knows? There's lots of options. But all I'm saying is, I think that Geno Smith, Baker Mayfield, and Sam Darnold are kind of all in that same tier of a starting quarterback that can win you games, but they need a lot of help around them to be truly competitive looking at a playoff win. Because I don't think any of them have a playoff win. Did Baker might have one. Baker might have one playoff win, but Geno
Yeah,
doesn't and Sam doesn't.
he beat uh he beat the Eagles last year.
I was
That's
gonna
his
say, yeah, I
playoff
think it
win.
was the Eagles last year.
And
Yeah,
he has two playoff wins.
two playoff wins. Okay,
He won one game with the Browns against the Steelers.
okay.
So I think he's like 2-3
He
playoff record.
and honestly, thinking about it, if I were had to rank them, I would put Baker at the top of those three in that
Absolutely.
tier. Not like high and above higher, but up in the top of that tier because he's just a gamer, man. He's so competitive.
I
He
think at
doesn't
this
back
point,
down.
I think that Baker's in a different tier.
You
I
think
mean,
so?
if everything, like I'm just thinking, like you got to think about not just the player, but the surrounding cast of what they have. I mean, Chris
Mhm.
Godwin is still with the Buccaneers. You still have um, Mike Evans is still with the
Mhm.
Buccaneers. I'm trying to think of the other wide receiver that's up and coming for the Buccaneers. We've talked about him before.
McMillan. McMillan.
McMillan. I mean, that's a
Hmm.
great three-headed monster, and your
It
running
is.
games is respectable.
Bucky Irving is a
Um,
stud. Yeah.
I mean, I think Baker's on pace to maybe I don't know. I'm not saying he's going to be amazing, but watch out for him to maybe be like one of the top five NFC quarterbacks next year.
Well, this past year he was up there. It was kind of a surprise because past 2 years before this past year he was solid. He was good. But
Hmm.
this past year he like kind of broke out to a sort of a next level. But then
Hmm.
that playoff game he kind of folded in a way in his own
Yeah.
area of how he plays. So, I mean, I would put him at the top of that tier, but until he can show that he can truly win in the playoffs, he's won the Browns against the Steelers, cool. He beat
Hmm.
the Eagles, but that was when the Eagles were imploding internally.
Hmm.
Um, so I can't quite put him in the next one just yet. We could do quarterback tiers at some time. That sounds awesome.
It
That
just
sounds
sounds
fun.
interesting. It just sounds interesting. This is what you're using, but when we go to Lamar Jackson, it's a totally different story. It feels
Kind
slightly
of,
double standardish. I mean, I get there's more regular season
kind
success for
of.
Lamar, but there's not that
Hmm.
much more playoff success for Lamar over Baker.
That's
It's
fair. That's fair. But who is Lamar losing to? Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. Who's
I
Baker
mean,
losing to?
Lamar
The
Jackson is
Steelers.
3-5 in the playoffs
That's more wins than Baker.
by one game. He's lost more games than Baker. So like by that standard, that's even worse than Baker because Baker's 2-3. I don't know. I'm not
Yeah.
trying to beat up on Lamar
Yeah.
Jackson. I just, I feel like
Hmm.
sometimes that NFL analysts will move the polls a little bit with players they like more than another player. So,
And also,
um,
how many MVPs has Baker won?
well, we could talk about the MVP trophy all day, Andrew, because there's plenty of people that I think should have gotten the MVP award that did
That's
not.
fair.
By the way, while
That's
we're on
fair.
that subject, real quick, how did Case Keenum not get MVP consideration back in his stellar season in 2017 with the Vikings? That's still a mystery to me how he did not get more respect for that year.
Who won that year? I don't remember who actually
It was
won the
Tom
MVP that
Brady, I
year.
think, that won
Well,
the
how can you
MVP.
you
And
you can't beat Tom Brady if him and the
but
Patriots.
I don't even think that Case Keenum was in the conversation. I mean, Carson Wentz, I think, was number two after his injury, which that was, I think, what
From what I
separated them. But
remember, I don't think Case Keenum's numbers were amazing. The team did really well, but we had a stellar defense, probably the best defense in the league that year. I don't think his individual numbers were crazy. They were
I
fine.
mean, he was
Are you pulling those up
3,500
now?
yards. He had 22 touchdowns passing. He had seven interceptions. He had a
That's
98.3.
fine. That's fine. That's not stellar. You got to pass for over 4,000 yards, over 30 touchdowns to get consideration in this league.
I don't know. Because Josh Allen didn't get over 4,000 yards this year, did he?
But he
Yeah, he
also
was
ran for
37.
a ton.
He was 3,700 and he had 26 touchdowns or 28 touchdowns passing. Now I
But
get
he
it. You're going
also
to say
ran a
running, but what
lot.
about running? What about running? Yes.
Add them
Ran.
together. Yeah. Add them
Wow,
together,
Andrew,
hit over
I've
4,000.
tried to throw you a bone and you're just throwing my bone in the dirt. So I get it. I mean, I understand, you can be bitter over how things ended, but I
Well, Case
mean,
Keenum was never truly it. And that's the reason why the very next year we went and signed the old mercenary Kirk Cousins because we thought, hey, if we just had a steady quarterback instead of a decent one, if we had the next level with our defense, how far we went last year, we could go all the way. And Kirk Cousins never worked out those 2 years until KOC came along, and Kirk Cousins played really well, which actually could transition to another interesting point. There's some speculation that Kirk Cousins could come back to Minnesota because him and Atlanta are talking about the future, and he's probably going to get cut. And it could be a Russell Wilson thing last year where he's going to get the minimum contract and the Falcons are going to pay the rest still. I don't want that at all. Kirk
that
Cousins
sounds like a
is
bad
is
idea, man.
absolutely. Kirk Cousins is an awesome human being. He's a really good, well, not really good anymore. He's a good quarterback. But the biggest problem is going to be we're going to bring him in, and our eyes, he's going to be the backup to JJ. But in his eyes, he's not. And he's going to make it hard in that locker room. He's going to be pushing to start. And anytime JJ makes a mistake, like his first interception thrown, there's going to be some internal difficulties because Kirk's like, hey, I can play. And it's just going to be a circus act. And we don't want that. We don't want that at all. He's probably going to go
Yeah.
to the Browns on that minimum deal, which kind of makes sense because Stefanski was his OC when he came in Minnesota. So I could see that happening. And he can have some success there with the weapons they have. Um, and just in his career with the Browns next couple of years because he's 37. He's not playing for much longer. He's had significant injuries. There's some quarterbacks that are up there in age, like we just said, Geno hasn't had significant injuries, so he could play 38, 39. I don't see Kirk playing much longer.
Yeah, I mean the Browns do make a lot of sense. I did just read that
Hmm.
the yesterday that Deshaun Watson's contract got kicked down the road
I
again.
know. I mean,
Uh,
they kind of had to because they're over the cap and they had to get under it, so they saved a ton. But that just means longer down the line, they're going to be fighting the cap because they pushed his contract down. That was
I
probably the
mean,
biggest mistake in free agency history or organizational history with trading for Deshaun Watson.
let me ask you this question because I think this
Yes.
leads me because this is going to come up in free agency and I think it's totally appropriate now, especially as we look at trades and stuff. Are
Hmm.
you a player should be fully guaranteed or not fully guaranteed?
Ooh, ooh, that's a really good question. Man, I'm torn a little bit, but I think I lean to the side of not fully guaranteed, just because of the aspect of the sport. It changes so much. Age can come quickly, and then if you're not all that good anymore, and the team still has to pay you 20 million that year for your quarterback contract, it's just not quite all the way fair for the team, where the player can renegotiate their contract over and over, get a new contract from a different team. So I think I lean toward contracts should not be fully guaranteed because this sport is hard. Injuries happen. Age comes and goes quickly. That age cliff, you can't see it, and then boop, you're done. So that's where I lean.
Interesting. Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat for the most part. I think the one caveat I
Hmm.
would say is if you make over, let's say, 2 to 3 million, then I think that you don't need to be making fully guaranteed money. Like once you make a large enough
Hmm.
nest egg that you could reasonably put it into retirement or into some type of
Hmm.
savings, my sympathy just it goes down.
Absolutely.
And that's the part I feel like that people get really worked up and don't understand is it's like I don't know, man. If you're making $20 million a year, and let's say even after taxes, you make $8 million a year. Not that I'm saying it'd be that much. I can't remember what the exact number is, but even if it's
Hmm.
$8 million a year, that's $8 million a year. I
Yep.
mean,
For playing a
you're
game.
you're telling me that you can't figure it out. I just
Hmm.
I do think that the Watson situation has just ruined any discussion about fully guaranteed money. It
Yeah.
just if there's
Yeah.
one good thing Deshaun Watson did for the league, Andrew, for
That
my
there it
team and your
is.
team, it's
There it is.
it's made the fully guaranteed notion almost
Hmm.
completely impossible to consider.
Yep.
So
Yep. And now that team is strapped with cash. They probably aren't going to be able to sign any free agents. They gotta nail the draft. Nail it. They're back into a wall. They got to get these kids on young contracts and they got to be studs. So we'll see what happens. But I think probably their best bet is to sign a Kirk Cousins for a year or two, not draft a quarterback this year with the number two pick, pick a superstar, pick like Carter or pick Travis Hunter, someone like that. And in my opinion, they should trade Garrett because he wants out. He doesn't want to be there. He's not going to really play. He's probably going to sit as long as he can. And it's going to be drama, drama, drama. You can get two first round picks for that guy right now. I'd be, I'd have shipped him out 2 weeks ago to get two first round picks, get that money off my books, try to retool this team, go back to the drawing board. And I mean, let's just say that I'm not sure who really needs an edge rusher on the top of the draft. Let's say the Giants said, we'll give you the three and a two next year for Garrett. Come on. You have the number two and the number three pick this year. Why not? Why not? Um,
the other interesting part is too that I was going to mention real quick. I just figured this
yeah.
out, but the Seahawks traded for an end of third round pick.
Okay. So it was almost at
So it's
four. So I'm more okay with it. I'm
so
more
it's
okay
kind of
with it.
interesting. See, I'm less okay with it, but I mean, I'm
Right?
happy for the Raiders. Go bargain binning. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Which
I had to
which
look
which
that up
leads
real
me
quick.
to a thought. I was thinking about this. As constructed right now, I know the Raiders are going to add more pieces. They're going to draft a really good player at sixth. I mean, could they draft Ashton Jeanty at six? Because they don't need a quarterback now. I'm just saying
Hmm.
the running back room is okay, but if they get a stud like that, I don't know. But as constructed this instance with Geno Smith, Brock Bowers, Jacoby Myers, and then defense that has some pieces, but not a lot. I see them in that division they're in with against Patrick Mahomes twice, going against Denver, who was here. They were up and coming last year. Now they are here. They are they're a real contender. They're going to be a tough out in any game. I really respect what Denver's doing. And then the Chargers, who have a great coach, great organization. I don't think they're quite there yet, but they're right on that bubble. I see the Raiders winning 6 games right now, constructed right now. They won four last year. I think Geno gives them two more wins right now. But again, they're going to add more players. That's going to bump up because they need another receiver. They probably need a better running back. The running back room's fine, but they could use a better one. And they need secondary help. So they have a lot of holes, and their O line is average-ish. It's fine, not bad, but fine. So I see them 6, maybe 7 wins right now. If they add some pieces, it could go up to 9. Typical Geno Smith team.
Man, I I'm just looking at their schedule because I wanted to take a peek to see what I
Yeah, I haven't.
think.
I didn't look at that. I didn't look at the schedule. I just know the division they're in. They got to play 6 games against those really good teams. That's
I just
probably
feel like that's a
4 or 5 losses.
I would put them at least at six right now. I mean, Pete Carroll is a good coach. He's not like,
Hmm. He's a good coach. Yeah, but you need
he's
players.
someone that's going to give you a couple extra wins just because of
Hmm.
his ability to coach the team and put them in good spots. I mean, he's not a Nathaniel
Hmm.
Hackett type coach that he's literally taking
That's fair.
wins away
Yeah.
from your team. Or
Hmm.
Adam Gase. Man, what a
Hmm.
joke of a coach he was in Miami.
We could even say the coach I have right now is kind of that way. I'm just saying.
Yeah, he's pretty bad too. No,
Hmm.
that's a good guess, man. I agree with that. I think that's good insight. So we'll
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 see
have
who
to
they
get
add.
into
Yeah,
projections.
they
Yeah,
might add a legit receiver. There's some guys out there, which actually one guy's off the board. I just saw. Like I have um, a free agent tracker, and some guys can be signed right now because they were on the team and they can be extended, or players that got cut. For example, we'll get into him, Jonathan Allen. He could be added any time. He doesn't have to wait till Monday. He could be added any time. But Marquise Brown just got re-signed to the Chiefs, probably because of everything going on with our other receivers getting in trouble left and right. But he signed another 1 year deal, looks like.
that is interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that situation with Xavier Worthy is not.
Mm,
I mean, man, that's a pretty expensive deal for someone that did nothing last year. Um,
that's fair.
I guess
That's
we'd have to
fair.
read up on the what the worth up to means. Is it $5 million, but
Yeah.
then
What's the
$6 million
incentives? Mm,
incentives?
hmm.
But man, that was not a good year. Um, in fact, I was
No,
surprised reading just some of the rumors going into the offseason that people wanted him, and I'm like, what is he? What is he bringing? I mean, I know what he brought 2 years ago, but
that was two
I
years
mean,
ago, 3 years ago.
the way he looked in the Super Bowl was he looked slow. He just did not look
Hmm.
poised to contribute. And then
Which I got to
also,
give props to the Chiefs for that because they lost all their players at the beginning of the year. Rashee Rice went down. Marquise Brown went down, even though he didn't do much. He still went down game one, basically. Or actually, it was the preseason, I think. But anyway, and they still made it to the Super Bowl. Even with no receivers, really. Xavier Worthy took time to develop. End of the year, he was good. Beginning of the year, he was just a gadget guy. So props to the Chiefs for making it to the Super Bowl.
absolutely. Yeah, I think that there's this misnomer, like, false notion going around that they're going to be done now.
Hmm.
They're not going anywhere. They might not
No,
get back to the Super Bowl, but I mean, just to
fair.
think they're going to lay down and die, like,
Hmm.
guys, there's only one team that made the Chiefs look silly the past couple of years.
Yep.
I mean, maybe the Bills won, but they did not make him look silly.
Hmm.
This is a tough team to beat. Tough team to beat.
Yep. Yep. Okay. Well, there's two other guys I want to touch on. You
Uh
might have
huh.
other guys, but I have two more guys. One is Deebo Samuel. He got traded from the Niners to the Commanders. That's very interesting. I predicted that T. Higgins was going to go there, but that's off the table now. So Deebo Samuel's interesting because when he is fully healthy, he is a dynamic player. We can't disagree with that. He's great after the catch. He also can run the ball a little bit out of the backfield, but he just can't stay on the field because of his type of play. He's kind of a smaller, like thicker kind of a receiver, so he gets hit a lot by those linebackers, and he just gets injured left and right. So this does make the Commanders better, but I don't think it gets them to that next level yet. They're not done, obviously, but I do like the move for them. They gave up a fifth round pick, was it, or a fourth?
Yeah, it was like uber cheap. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, I know they have to pick up this
Yeah.
contract, but contracts
Yeah, and they're getting
and
the full
draft pick,
contract, I think. But they had a ton of money anyway. They had like 100 million in cap space.
But he's only
Like
got 1 year
insane.
left on his deal, doesn't he?
That's right. That's right. So they got to redo his deal, or they're gonna trade that fifth round pick for a 1 year rental.
I mean, but that's not a bad trade.
That's not
I mean,
bad. Yeah, they
what did
need a
the
receiver
Bills
help.
trade for Amari Cooper? Was that
I
a
don't
third?
remember. I don't think it was that high.
Um,
Don't think it was that high.
it was close. The Bills got Cooper and a sixth for a third and a seventh.
Okay, well, yeah.
I mean,
Basically, if you average it out, it was a fourth, but yeah.
but that's crazy though. That's a really bad trade for the Bills to, get a
In
half
in
year
the in the in
rental for
the
that much.
in the grand scheme of things, absolutely. At the time, they might have thought, hey, if we can get Amari Cooper close to what he used to be, maybe we can make a Super Bowl, and that'd be totally worth it. But he just didn't have it, it looked like. He was just kind of slow, sluggish, not the same guy.
Yeah,
But who knows with Deebo? If he's healthy and he's ready to roll, that 1-2 punch with Deebo and McLaurin could be pretty decent. Pretty decent. And they're not done yet. They got a ton of money. They got a ton of
I
money,
mean,
which goes to my next player I was thinking of. Oh, you got a point you want to make?
I was just gonna say that. I mean, just to trade a player for a full year for a fifth.
It's not
That
bad.
could be crazy
Es-
value.
Especially a
Could
stud
be.
player or a potential stud player, an ex-stud player at least.
Yeah.
The next player I want to talk about because there's a chance the Commanders might be on the list is Trey Hendrickson from the Bengals.
Mm,
So I was thinking that they didn't have enough money to pay Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Trey Hendrickson, and I guess maybe I was right, just not in the right area. I thought T. Higgins was going to go. They're going to keep Hendrickson, but they're letting Trey Hendrickson, who's 30, I think, they're letting him look at his trade value. And 30 years old isn't too terribly old just yet. He's got two probably more solid years left in him. Commanders make sense. They need some edge rushers. And he has been consistently top three sack production every single year. Could they get him for a third or a fourth? Possibly. Maybe, probably more like a fourth would get the job done, I think, at his age. I could see that. I could see that making a ton of sense. I could see that making a ton of sense. Sending a fourth, maybe a fourth, which could turn into a third based off production. Those kinds of little stipulations they have in those trades, and then the Commanders picking him up. Now we're talking that they could be getting to that level of threatening the Eagles. Right now, they're not. They're a solid second team in the NFC East, playoff team, competitive, but not on the Eagles level. If they picked up an edge rusher of the level of a Myles Garrett or a Trey Hendrickson, then it's going to get close. Then it's going to get close with that team. So Henderson wants out. The Bengals want to save some money, get some draft picks. I think the Commanders make a ton of sense.
yeah, I think that that's totally fair. I just can't help but wonder if the Commanders take a step back.
It's
I'm not
possible.
saying, uh,
Sophomore
you
slump
know,
for rookie quarterbacks is a thing. It's a
but
thing.
just the combo of everything. We kind of mentioned him already, but Jonathan Allen's not coming back,
Yeah.
and how much does
They
that affect
have
the?
Tavondre Sweat, I think, is the guy they have. They drafted a
Uh,
defensive tackle last year. That might not
yes.
be his name. Or is it Newton?
Um,
I can't remember which one it was. It was one of the two guys, but they stepped in his place when he was out and performed admirably. And they're on a young rookie contract that could develop. But I'm on board with you. Jonathan Allen, losing him is going to make their D line a little bit worse because Jonathan Allen's been a stud in this league. And I really hope
yeah.
Minnesota is making that call right now and say, hey, we'll give you 10, 12 mil this year. Come on down. Play for Mr. Flo. Really hope that happens. I'm predicting it happens, kind of speaking it into the universe, speaking it into existence because it really needs to happen for the Vikings. But he's going to have suitors. It's going to be who pays him more. I mean, I know that NFLPA survey, Minnesota's
Mhm.
number two, but that is just the kind of like the sprinkles on top. So if you're getting two contracts that are the exact same, basically, by Team X and by Minnesota, okay, maybe I'll go to Minnesota. But if Team X is offering 3 million more, I'm going over there. That's just how it works. Money talks. So hopefully Minnesota doesn't get cheap and they offer him a decent contract, one he likes. and we can bring him on over as maybe like a 65-ish% snap player. Because I don't know if he's a full-time player anymore. Because that injury, he's getting up there in age a little bit, but passing downs, definitely out there rushing the passer. That'd be great. But yeah, the Commanders D line took a step back a little bit. Sophomore slump is a thing. Teams have time to watch tape of Jaden Daniels, see what kind of, tendencies he does. Does he kind of give something off when he's about to throw it deep? Is there a movement he makes that kind of sells something? They're going to watch his tape closely. They're going to figure him out. He'll probably take that small step back. Just look at what CJ Stroud did this year. Now that might have to do with injuries to his receivers, absolutely, but he took a step back. No one can deny that. Sophomore slump's a thing. This league is hard. Rookies, team defensive coordinators don't really have a lot of tape on them yet because college tape isn't the same. But after the first year, they do some studying. So yeah, I'm on board with you. I can see him taking a step back, and they have some older players. Like they just signed Bobby Wagner to another 1 year deal, but he's older. Austin Eckler is older. He might be leaving. Brian Thomas Jr. is fine. Brian Robinson Jr., excuse me, not Thomas Jr. Brian Robinson Jr. is fine as a running back, but not great. Their O line is okay. So yeah, I can see them taking a little step back, but if they add a legit pass rusher, that could change the game.
Well, and it's interesting too because people are going to overlook this, but Sam Cosmi, their starting right guard, had a torn ACL in the
Yeah,
NFC divisional round. That's a
he's
big,
good.
big injury.
Yeah,
He's not coming back fast.
he's probably gonna miss the whole year, honestly, because having
Well,
an
close to
injury
it.
in January, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's probably gonna miss the whole year unless they make a playoff run. Then he might come for the playoffs. But yeah,
But even
that's also
then,
a big loss.
it's so tough to come back and to get in sync and
Hmm.
to the offense changes every year. It doesn't remain the same,
Hmm.
at least hopefully. Hopefully you're making adjustments and hopefully you're introducing new concepts
Hmm.
and figuring out. I mean, Deebo Samuel's in the offense now. Are you going to try to incorporate some
Yep.
jet concepts, end arounds, or trick plays? Is he going to be used
Hmm.
as kind of like a gadget running back player that he was in San
Yeah. I mean,
Francisco?
if they lose Austin Eckler, it kind of makes some sense. He can kind of take place of Austin Eckler's touches to an extent. So yeah.
Well, even just thinking through that part, that's what I love about the value of the trade is that it's 1 year. And if you really
Hmm.
just want to go into 1 year, then you can use them as that gadget player running back and not worry
Hmm.
about the
It's very
long-term
true.
consequences. And that works out beautifully for them. Whereas 49ers, it didn't work out as well because you'd already signed into this big contract. You're trying to figure
Hmm.
out if you want to re-up. I just think dynamics play a big role in how successful a player can be.
Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
yeah. There was someone else I was going to mention. We kind of already touched on Sam Darnold. Um, I mean, we should talk about this too, Andrew. We kind of hinted at it earlier, but the Bears getting in the guard game with trades.
There we go. That's a good place to go to. Yeah. Yeah. I
Um,
like that. How
surprising,
about you?
really
You do your
surprising.
take first. You do your thought of it first, since it's my division and I might be somewhat biased. So you go first. You go first with your thoughts.
Well, I mean, I think that the first trade with the Rams, it's a respectable trade, and I think it helps them get better. The Tooney trade is the one where I'm like, wow. I mean, Jonah Jackson, I think, can be good, but
Mm-hmm.
getting Joe Tooney, um, wow. I mean, that I think that could be a really incredible value for him. But it depends on what their perspective is, and that's the part I
Hmm.
just quite don't understand with the Bears' plans moving forward. Is you had such a bad year last year. Do you really expect to compete immediately? Do you really expect to
Hmm.
come out the gates and really fight for the division? I mean, I don't think the Packers are going anywhere. I don't think that the
Mm.
Vikings are going anywhere. I don't think that the Lions are going anywhere. So that puts you
Tough
at number
division.
4. But I do like their moves that they make. I think it's going to help Caleb Williams a ton. That line was
Yeah.
dreadful last year.
Yeah.
But the part that I just come back to in my mind is you knew what you had going into the season. How did you not do more in those spots? That's the part I can't
Hmm.
understand. I don't understand how you
Hmm.
got to that point where how did you not have a better answer for it? I think some of it's on the front office, but I think some of it is why did you ever give Eberflus the keys to that franchise?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
just epic bad decisions. I mean, like that's so bad that really they shouldn't have brought back their GM. Like, or
And
I
so
mean,
quickly on
maybe
their
pulls
GM,
them.
something really
Uh,
funny. When he was introduced 2 years ago, he basically made a comment. He says, "We're taking back the North and we're never giving it back." Uh, when's that going to happen?
yeah, man, that's not the way this works. That's not the way.
Mhm.
I mean, but the Bears have not been a winning franchise for a
A
long
long
time.
time. They
I
that
mean,
one year when they think they made the Super Bowl with Rex Grossman.
yeah. I mean, I'd call that the Urlacher era. I would have called that the
That's
Grossman era.
100%. Yeah, yeah, exactly. But that's how they got there. Their defense was so stacked, but they didn't win it. And I think after
No.
that, they just fell off a cliff. And that was their 1 year. They got there, but then, yeah.
Yeah. Well, then they doubled down on continuing to try to build with Jay Cutler, and that was also a
Mm,
mistake. I mean,
yep. And then
the guy that's
Trubisky.
that's another one. Yeah, they just have made such bad moves. I mean, just,
Hmm.
but that's what it comes down to, man. The decisions made by your GM just alter teams
Hmm.
drastically. I mean,
It does.
Brian Flores comes to the Vikings and they look like a totally different defense after,
Hmm.
I mean, a year, right? I mean, a year
Yeah.
of a turnaround. The Eagles bring in Vic Fangio and a
Hmm.
year turnaround. I mean, it just, those types of moves need to happen. And
Yep.
back to the Raiders. Pete Carroll's going to Las Vegas. Look out.
That's,
They
yeah.
actually might be a legitimate team. I like the combo. I like what they're bringing.
Yep.
I think Ben could
Yep.
have a similar role with the Bears. It's just
Hmm.
hard because it's like we've never seen him lead. We've never seen him lead. Um,
Exactly. He's not a proven
uh,
head coach yet. He could be awesome. He could be phenomenal. We don't
yeah.
know.
Well, and I mean, tying it back to, I only tie it to basketball because it's just from my perspective as a Jazz fan, which is one of the most gut wrenching, painful experiences of my life. And I
Oof.
try not to focus
Oof.
on my Jazz fandom, but it does come out. But
Uh-huh.
when Quinn Snyder was the coach of Rudy Gobert and Donovan
Mm,
Mitchell,
mm,
he did not manage
mm,
personalities well. I mean, and even
mm-hmm,
watching him on the court, I would think this is the guy that just wants to draw up the plays and that's it. He doesn't want to deal with the drama.
mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
it still drives me nuts, Andrew, to this day that the Jazz just said goodbye to Gobert and Mitchell and didn't say, maybe we need a better manager of the locker room to actually maintain these personalities so that they work together cohesively. No, we'll just get rid of the pieces and trade him for, crappy first round picks, which don't mean anything in the NBA, and reset the
Mm-hmm,
button and go into an era of, true darkness as a Jazz fan. And then we'll
mm-hmm.
also roll out this yellow highlighter jersey. Okay, I'm off my soapbox now.
I gotta say, I'm so happy that my GM of my basketball team is the best GM in basketball.
Uh,
Sam Presti of
it
the
makes
Thunder.
dude,
It
it makes a
makes
huge
a huge
difference.
difference. Hmm.
It makes all the difference.
Yep.
Yeah. So, but coming back to the Bears, same thing with Ben and looking at Quinn. This guy better know
Hmm.
how to manage the locker room. He better know how to manage personalities. He better be
Yep.
willing to get into these nitty gritty discussions when the quarterback and
Hmm.
running back aren't getting along or the wide receiver. He better be willing to keep the defensive line and linebackers on the same page when there's issues about sacks
Hmm.
or tackling running backs. You can't just
Yep.
say someone else has got this. I'm on offense. Like,
Hmm.
say what you want about Nick Sirianni. The dude is in the nitty gritty details of keeping his team united. That's what you got to do.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, for sure. For sure. And my 2 cents on all these Bears moves. So when they picked up Jonah Jackson, I thought, okay, that's fine. They improved their O line because their interior was awful, but that didn't really move the needle much. The big thing was he played for the Lions whenever Ben was there initially, like 2, 3 years ago, something like that. So I thought, okay, that makes sense. Bringing back a guy, they didn't trade a whole lot of compensation for him. It wasn't high. I was like, okay, whatever, that's fine. He picked up better O linemen, which actually, in the grand scheme of things, might help the Vikings out because that takes them out of trying to sign one of these free agent guards who Minnesota's really looking at because now the Bears don't really need to. And then when they traded for Tooney, I thought, okay, this is interesting because Tooney is still really good, but he's 33, I think. So this move is kind of a short-term move because he's not going to have 5, 6 more years, maybe 3 at most. Um, and he's going to have to be re-signed. I think he's on the last year of his deal, maybe. He's going to make a ton of money. He's going to make 18 million a year or something like that. Anyway, so they're looking at now instead of the future. So I'm thinking, do they really have enough to win now? And looking at their team, so the running backs are fine. They're not great. DeAndre Swift is fine. They have a couple rookies they've drafted. They could be looking at Astigenti at 10. If they get him at 10, if he falls at 10 and they pick him, okay, I see what you're trying to do, Ben Johnson. You're trying to build the Lions 2.0. Get the trenches fixed, get a really good running back, and then you have a quarterback that you can manage. But I don't know if Caleb Williams fits in his system. If he changes his system to his players, that's brilliant. That's awesome. Congratulations. That could work. But Caleb Williams is not Jared Goff. Jared Goff is a system quarterback. What's the play going to look like? And I'll get it to the right guy. And he's great at it. I'll give Jared Goff credit. He's great at finding an open guy. Caleb Williams.
I'm shocked listening to this, Andrew. You're complimenting Jared Goff. Like I hope that we
Well,
record this for forever because this doesn't happen very.
well, I'm complimenting him to a point of being a system quarterback that can find the right answers, but not a Super Bowl caliber quarterback. So anyway, but Caleb Williams is different. He doesn't fit that system. He's more of figure out my own path. He's more of let me get out of the pocket and just make something random happen, which he's really good at. I'll give him. He's really good at doing that off those off-script moments. But that's not the Ben Johnson offense. So if Ben Johnson changes his offense a little bit to get Caleb Williams his best potential, awesome. If he tries to fit Caleb Williams into his offense that currently is, I don't think that's going to have as much success as he thinks it's going to. But they do have talent on that team. The offensive line got better. They have DJ Moore still. They have Odunze, two really good receivers. Cole Kmet, really good tight end. Their defense is a little underrated. They have a lot of pieces there. So they have talent on this team. They've had talent for years, but is it going to work? I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, Joe Tuna being old, they're looking at maybe the next 2 years trying to make something happen, which kind of makes sense because Caleb Williams on his rookie contract. But I don't think they have enough. We'll see what they do in the offseason and the draft. But these moves made them better for sure. Their guards were their weak spot. They have decent tackles. I think they have a young tackle who's up and coming pretty good. But this does make them better. But I kind of thank them for doing this because that means Minnesota has one less team to compete with for the offensive lineman market because that's what we need as well. Um, but I would be with you. I would still put them fourth in this division. But being fourth in this division isn't a bad thing because this division's insane. It's insanely good. But I don't know. I'm not the biggest Packers fan. I think they could be competing for the Packers for that 3 spot, in my opinion. Because I'm not a Jordan Love guy. I've never been. I've seen him play. I watch him close. When he's getting pressured, instead of stepping into the throw, he fades away and does like a off back foot fadeaway throw with just throwing with his arm, which he's got a great arm. He's talented, but that's not how it's going to work in this league. That's how he's been so inconsistent. And the Packers paid him a ton of money after playing 8 good games. I don't know. I need to see more. Now, if they trade for DK Metcalf, which has been a rumor, okay, there might be something there. Might be something brewing because they got some pieces. But as constructed right now, I kind of think that the Bears might have more talent than the Packers overall
Mhm.
on both sides of the ball. Are they the better team? Not right now. Absolutely not right now. But I think they might have more talent. It just depends on if Ben Johnson can get this team going and is a good head coach. I don't know that. I don't. I see it as a struggle his first year, but he's going to learn. We'll see what happens. But that's my 2 cents on it.
I like it. I like it. I think it's respectable. One other aspect in this trade Andrew that we got to dig into is Chiefs got a really big problem to figure out. They just made their whole left line of the
Oh,
left side of the
I have
line
I
dramatically
have a thought
worse.
on that. I have thought on
Hmm.
that. I think they might be pushing to try to get Ronnie Stanley from the Ravens because their left tackle spot was their big difficult spot.
And how are they going to get Ronnie Stanley from the Ravens?
He's a free agent.
Is he a free agent? I guess I missed that.
Yeah, he's the top of all like the free agent boards. Now, the Ravens probably have the best chance of bringing them back, but the Chiefs are going to fight for it. They're going to offer them a ton of money because they had to get rid of some cap space, so they got rid of Tooney. And really, their guard spots were an issue-ish, but it was mainly that tackle spot. That's why they moved Tooney over there. He didn't really play all that great at that tackle. He was okay. So if they go after Ronnie Stanley, that could be a huge thing for Patrick Mahomes. I think that's what their goal is. Is it going to
How
happen?
do
I
they
don't
make
know.
that work? I mean, how are they going to make the numbers fit?
I
They
don't know.
can't just make
Capologists are
endless
awesome.
moves.
Yeah, I think that's their goal. If it happens, it's a different story. But I think that's what they have their eyes on. They had to open up some
I
cap space. They got draft pick for Tooney. They franchise
I
tagged my boy.
mhm.
I feel bad for him. I franchise tagged him. I wanted him over here. Come on, Trey, but nope.
I mean, they could trade for him. The trading is still an option with the franchise tag,
We
but
don't have
you
any
just have to pay
picks.
the steep price.
We
Yeah,
don't have any
that's
picks.
fair.
Yeah, trading is not going to be our main game this year. It's going to be free agency because we have some money, and Quasito is really good at finding really solid players on the cheaper. Because last year's free agency market was, I mean, his free agency class last year was phenomenal, and he didn't have any money to spend last year. He's got money this year, so we'll see what he does.
I mean, that's interesting, man. It's gonna be fun to follow. I think that was it for the
I think so.
most
That was a
NFL
lot.
news. Um,
There's been other things speculating going on, like Jared Alexander. There's other players, but I think that's the biggest news so far.
because I have more. We got to dig into the Eagles, but I think we can do that on the next episode because I think that's
I
going
like
to tie into
that.
the free agency plans.
I like that. I like that. Well, yeah, next episode's all about free agency speculation because free agency's right around the corner. We'll dive deep into that next episode. Thank you guys for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.